So, an interesting story came up last night while I was doom scrolling through Facebook, and I actually overheard this on the radio as well, just to back up how big of a story this is. VAR, the video assistant referee, something that is incredibly polarizing and downright unpopular in a lot of countries. Whether it's improved football or not is the subject of a lot of debate. However, not all leagues have introduced VAR. I think the Swedish league does not have VAR, but most top flight leagues these days does have VAR, at least in some form. And as far as I'm aware, no country has ever gone back on that. No country has ever introduced VAR and gotten rid of it until now, or at least potentially anyway, because football clubs in Norway have voted to scrap the video assistant referee after extensive protests in the country. Now, I think this still has to go to a vote with the Norwegian FA, but the clubs themselves have said, yeah, we want to get rid of it. Now, let's have a look at this story, though. Full article over on, well, it says The Athletic, says the New York Times. I think they're effectively the same thing when it comes to this. But yeah, shout out to these guys for covering it. I'll just read out the article and give my thoughts at the end like usual, guys. Clubs in Norway's top two divisions have voted to discontinue the use of the video assistant referee in their domestic leagues. The 32 teams in Norsk Top Football, the organisation that represents clubs in Norway's Eliteserien and First Division, which is the Premier League and Championship equivalent for Norway, passed a motion that requests the Norway Football Association, NFF, board to recommend that the Federal Assembly adopts the discontinuation of video assistant referee, VAR, as soon as possible. 19 teams voted in favour of scrapping the technology. The vote does not discontinue the use of VAR with immediate effect, and the decision will be made at the Federal Assembly at the beginning of March. I believe right now the Norwegian League is not playing. They have a break over the winter, as you would expect in a Nordic country, so they're not currently playing, so this might happen in time for the start of the 2025 season for them. This means that even if NTF is negative about the further use of VAR after today's meeting, there is a possibility that VAR will be part of the Eliteserien in the future as well, a Norsk Top Football statement read. We see that the technology has potential, but we see through today's discussion and subsequent voting that the majority of our clubs believe that the current version of VAR does not work well enough. Cato Haug, the chairman of Norsk Top Football Board, said. A proposal for VAR to be scrapped for the 2025 Eliteserien season was not passed, so it will be there for the next season coming up before the alternative motion to scrap the technology as soon as possible was adopted, so it could be 2026. Haug told Norwegian news outlet Idrett Sportekikk NO. That's probably Miles. You can see it on the screen. The first motion was not passed as the consequences of not thoroughly studying the impact of VAR's removal for 2025 were too great. They wanted there to be a little more room to find out the consequences before taking such a clear stance, Haug added. A VAR report from the NFF in November stated the federation was being criticised for its communication style regarding VAR, adding, players acknowledge that VAR enhances the fairness of refereeing decisions, but for call improvements in time management and more predictable procedures. VAR was introduced into the Eliteserien in 2023, but has frequently been the subject of supporter protests. One incident in July saw the top flight match between Rosenborg and Lillestrøm abandoned after supporters threw tennis balls, fish cakes. Fish cakes? Threw fish cake. Oh my god, I've not had a fish cake since my nan was alive, bless her. That's the best part of a decade ago. That is such an odd thing. I mean, I guess they're big on the fish over in Norway, a big fishing nation. And smoke bombs, that's more typical, onto the pitch in protest of the technology. Elsewhere in Europe, Sweden became the first country to reject implementing VAR after fan backlash in May. The following month, the Premier League clubs rejected proposals to scrap VAR following a motion from Wolverhampton Wanderers at the league's AGM. I believe Wolves were the only team to actually vote in favour of getting rid of VAR at that meeting. And that was going to be a kind of topic of discussion really within this video. Will the Premier League scrap VAR? Will this happen? Absolutely not. No, I can't see it. I mean, even the clubs themselves have voted pretty much overwhelmingly for VAR, so don't see it in a month for Sundays, to be honest. They've invested too much money in it. And in theory, it should get better with that automated offside, but that's not happened yet. That was meant to be implemented in November, and apparently it hasn't done so because they use a different ball in the Premier League compared to Europe. Well, it's round, isn't it? How different can it be? Anyway, so yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one. I mean, as far as I'm aware, Norway are the first country to abolish it after getting it. I mean, they only got it 2 seasons ago. So it's really showing how unpopular it is. I mean, for my money, VAR can be a great thing. It has potential to be a good thing in sport, but overall, you'd have to say the implementation of it has been poor at best. And the biggest problem for me, or one of the biggest problems anyway, right now, initially I think there were big problems when it came to offsides that were, offsides that were very, very marginal. You couldn't really tell because of the motion blur. They've got rid of that now, which is good. But for me, as a supporter, as someone who hopefully has a Premier League team to support next season, we'll see how that happens. I would say that overall, it's just less enjoyable having VAR in the stadium as a supporter. It takes too long. The communication just isn't there. And that can be improved in time for sure. But honestly, I prefer watching us in the Championship right now. Mainly because we're winning all the time rather than, well, not winning all the time, winning most of the time rather than getting beat 5-0 every week. That does help. But from a spectator point of view, I would say that the communication's just not there. And we've seen a little bit of that. We've seen a little bit of that in the Carabao Cup tie, Spurs against Liverpool, wasn't it? They showed what they can do there. That should be rolled out to be standard across the Premier League. We, in the stadium, should see what the referees see on the big screen. Every stadium has one in the Premier League. Most professional football stadiums have a big screen. I've not been to one that's a professional stadium that doesn't have one. I think every club has one. It's probably a requirement, to be fair. So there shouldn't be that separation there. You should not have a better understanding of what's happening in the game at home in your living room watching it on the TV compared to actually being in the stadium, paying your money for your ticket. That is a poor fan experience for what is an incredibly expensive thing to do these days. I was horrified at the price of what it was to go down to the Bramall Lane a few weeks back to watch us against West Brom. That was really eye-opening. Couldn't believe how expensive it was. Premier League's going to be even worse. So, yeah, for me, that should be something that should be standard. But unfortunately, the FA are very slow with things like this. We've only just got to the point now where clocks can go past 45 and 90 minutes at the end of the first and second half, respectively. That only came in a few years ago. Before that, you had to time it on your watch or put a stopwatch on your phone or something like that. Pathetic. So we'll see what happens, guys. For my money right now, I'd rather not have VAR personally, but I don't think they'll ever scrap it in England now. They won't do it. They've got too much pride for it and invested too much money in it. But what do you guys think? Did the Norwegians have this correct? Have they done the right thing here? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And we'll see you very soon for some more Football Chronicle content. See you soon, guys. Have a good one.